Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Hi, and welcome back. This is episode 77 of Nursing Your Way to Wealth. Just a quick apology from us last week. Alex, accountant, was on a work trip to Italy, so I didn't record anything on my own, but we're back as usual for this week. This episode has come as a kind of a thought experiment I've had. So I've had a friend of mine move jobs and get a £10,000 pay rise. I'm at some point, hopefully this year, going to do something very similar. It's going to push me from the 20 to 40% tax bracket. So I thought Alex and I could just have a discussion on how to optimize that, because I feel like quite a lot of people will be moving into the 40% bracket because, as we know, those kind of brackets have been fixed. They've been fixed for a while. There's no chat about them being moved, particularly, at least not that I've heard. So I wonder if it changes your approach to optimizing your salary. So we're just going to have a quick chat about what we can do about that, so you can keep more money, as much of your money as you can, because you've worked hard to earn it. So, Alex, I'll pass to you for a return on heartbeats and just a quick line about your trip to Milan.
Yeah, hi everybody, and hey Alex. I think it's going to be an interesting episode. But yes, I went to Milan on a work trip, which was a very successful trip. So we did, yeah, Tuesday to Thursday evening, lots of work, talk about lots of artificial intelligence, lots of bonding, and lots of food and lots of drink. So it was a very partly intellectually stimulating and partly food-induced coma stimulating. But yeah, all very good. Milan's a really nice city, nice and compact, easy to get around, incredibly stylish, as people take a lot of pride in their appearance. Um, but yeah, I'd recommend seeing it. It's a nice place. And then my return on heartbeat, so not last Sunday, the Sunday before, I went to go and see Oasis at their last uh, concert on their UK tour. So I went to Wembley to go and watch them. And for me, they were my favorite band growing up, like the first band I really got into. So going to that place, so we went to Wembley. There's 80,000 people, all in bucket hats and Oasis t-shirts, and I think from lots of age ranges as well, and all of which everyone had an amazing time. It was very moving at times as well. I think there's a lot of songs that mean a lot to a lot of people, and it was, yeah, absolutely excellent. Could not have. I thought they were going to be good, but they were just way better than I thought. So really huge return on heartbeats there.
Yeah, definitely. I think something like that at their pinnacle is probably a once in a lifetime thing. Um,
Oh, it is,
yeah,
yeah,
so it's, I would say, 100% worth whatever outlay you spent, because it sounds like you had a great time. And actually, when you're done, like, you're not choosing between going to see Oasis and like paying your mortgage. You're you're going to
yeah,
enjoy the money spent, aren't you? And
yeah,
you create like the memories and the time, the experience that you've had.
yeah, definitely. And it was, yeah, so special, unforgettable. Um,
Good.
yeah,
Good. Sometimes gigs can do that, can't they? When you have such an amazing time and you're just there with great people, all and everyone's there just enjoying the same thing at the same time. There's a lot of harmony, both musically and people wise.
completely. And I made a friend sat next to me, and we were both loving the show. And yeah, it was so nice. And I think for those few hours, you like get transported back to your youth a little bit, which is quite nice. There's something really special about that. So yeah, if they come around again to anybody, I would, and you're into it, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, cool. Oh, it sounds like a great time. Yeah, I've never seen
Yeah,
Oasis
amazing.
live at all. Um,
No, yeah, this is the first time I could see them. Because by the time I was like old enough to have money to go and see them, they'd split up. So,
yeah,
um,
bad timing.
yeah. So, no, it was awesome.
Oh, good, good. Glad to hear it. Um, okay, let's move to then like the main body. This might take kind of more than one part, I think. So, in terms of optimizing salary, Alex, I made some notes that we can sort of both
Yeah,
see. I'm going to chuck some figures around, but what's your first initial thought when if someone were to ask you, like, I'm going to be moving tax brackets, I'm going to get a pay rise at some point, and it's going to be this much. So if someone initially is moving some, say, 20%, and they've been a 20% taxpayer for the majority of their working life, never been in the 40% bracket before, what kind of springs to mind about just important stuff that you need to think about?
Yeah, it's a really, I think, really interesting topic because I think, as you mentioned at the start, the bands in which you start to pay tax on, they've been frozen for I don't know how many years, maybe probably over 5 years, and they're not very likely to get um, unfrozen and moved for probably another 5 to 10 years, I would say. I think, and so more and more people will creep into them, and they call it a bit of a stealth tax. So, and quite rightly in that it does, you don't think you're paying more, but you generally will. So, but the things for me that it's not just income tax that gets affected when you move up to a tax bracket. There's other things that start to get affected, and big ones for me when you're moving between like the 20 and the 40, the bank interest that you can earn. So when you're a 20% taxpayer, that's £1,000 a year. That drops to £500 a year. So you can any interest that you earn on your bank accounts, you will pay. That's tax free up to £1,000 when you're in the 20% bracket. But anything over and above £500 when you're in the 40% bracket, that starts to become taxable. So there's decisions to be made on, so there's implications on that. There's implications on dividends as well. So if you um, start to pay tax on dividends, so if you're a basic rate taxpayer, so everyone can get £500 a year for this current tax year for dividends, tax free. But then if you're having to pay tax on them, there's a basic rate. If you're a basic rate taxpayer, that's 8.75% that you're going to pay. If you then move into the higher rate, so the 40% bracket, any dividends you earn over and above that tax-free allowance are taxed at 33.75%. So that it starts to become more penal in different areas, and getting below especially if you're on the borderline between the 20 and 40, my immediate knee-jerk reaction is pension contributions, and being able to, if you can put um, you can salary sacrifice, so you essentially give away some of your salary to go into your pension, and then your taxable income comes down. So that's a really effective way of pulling you back into that 20% bracket. So that's kind of an immediate kind of thought that I have with it. But those are the kind of three main ones, and obviously depending on the extent to which you're going to be going over into the bracket may impact you.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. You very much need to think about it if you're just moving into it. But if you're, say, going from to like 55,000, I say just you're kind of five and a bit £1,000 into that bracket. If you're earning £85,000, that's a slightly different story in terms of how you can approach that. At some point, just paying a lot of tax will be a problem, like a nice-ish problem to have, because you must be having the earnings to associate with that. But I think it's something that definitely needs like consideration. So in terms of salary sacrifice, that's done for your employer, and you're able to put some of that money into your pension, which then, and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, it would take your payable salary, the salary you take, to become, for example, 49,500, which would be below the 40% bracket, and enable you to put that chunk of money, in this case, £5,500, into your pension, which means you get to keep that and you don't pay a 40% tax on it.
Yeah, correct. So if if you're on 55 and you wanted to pull yourself down into the 20% bracket, you can sacrifice, yeah, 10, 11, 12%. So if you were to sacrifice, 6,000, say, that would pull you into
Yeah.
the 49. Um, and then you're in the lower tax bracket. One thing to um, also consider is your savings, any interest that, oh no, ignore me actually, I don't think that's the case. I was going to say I don't think your interest counts as income to your income tax because you've got your allowance. So, but yeah, that's for salary sacrifice, that's exactly how you do it. And normally within your employer like HR portal, you've got the ability to um, choose a percentage of your salary that you want to sacrifice. That's how mine works, for example. And then you'll still get a match up to a certain percentage, but I can contribute more of a percentage. I can contribute as much as I want to my pension through salary sacrifice. But that's a really effective way of just pulling you down.
Yeah, I think there's other ways around it. Like I've done some salary sacrifice before when I earned a lot less than kind of 55. I think I was earning like mid 30s or something at that point. And the charity I worked for had a salary sacrifice scheme. Um, there wasn't an option within the portal, but I just made like a couple of emails to someone who works in pensions, and I said, look,
Mm.
instead of me putting in the mandatory 5%, can I put in 12? And he said, well, his name was Robin. I'm assuming it's a man. And he said, yeah, sure, we can do that. The maximum the charity or company will put in is, I think they put in 5 as well, something like that. So yeah, you can sacrifice more of that to bring yourself just below the bracket. Is it a case, Alex, of say you're not going to stay on 55,000 forever? If you get, say, a pay rise, is it just a case of tweaking that percentage you put in to again bring you below, like to 49 and a half or something like that, 49,900 if you're going to cut it fine?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you would just sacrifice more. Um, there may be a limit for how much you can actually sacrifice. I don't know if, for example, you'd be able to sacrifice your whole thing, um, but yeah, I think there's often then I think you've got to look at it within a balance as well of your kind of broader financial goals. Like pensions are really effective ways of saving, but they're not accessible till you're older, and you might want to use some of your additional income to maybe take advantage of the ISA allowance. So even though you're going to be paying tax, it means you can lock some money away tax free that's accessible whenever you want it, or you might have debts that you want to pay. Um, and if you've got debts which are expensive, then using some of your like maybe not sacrificing as much, but clearing some of that debt is probably more worthwhile. Depending on how much your employer. I always say with pensions, like match, at least get your pension contribution as much as what your employer will match, because that's free money. It's 100% return. Like you do not get that anywhere else. But there may then be, depending on your circumstances, other uses for that money in the short to medium term. Because I think sometimes we can be guilty of letting the tax tail wag the dog.
Yeah, well, it should be the other way around. I think it's valid and it makes sense. And it's, I think, just assessing your own situation. So if you have debts, use the extra money to pay those off. Then utilize some extra into your pension. I mean, it depends kind of who you are. If you've had 30 years in a great defined benefit scheme and actually your pension is sorted and you want more income for now, then pay a little bit of extra tax and just keep some extra cash available to you. But think about it from your own lens. So that's why we have a broad discussion here between Alex and I. We don't know the individual kind of situation that's going on for each of you. So
Mm.
do think carefully about that as well. The only other things I was thinking about was things like child benefit, nursery hours. That there is a tapering allowance for that. If you earn over a particular amount, I think you don't get free nursery hours or something. I think it's 60. Is it 60,000? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't actually. Um,
Yeah, we should figure that out. Bring it back for next week.
yeah, I don't have as I'm don't have any children. It's one of my blind spots, I would say, and is knowing about the.
Yeah,
But I can't. Was that? Is it £80,000 a year joint household income, something like that? We can come back to that one maybe for
yeah,
next week.
we'll circle round. We'll do optimizing salary part 2 next week, and we'll figure that out. I've discussed it with my sister, who's recently had a baby a couple of years ago, and I was like, actually, just be aware of this. Um,
I know it's a labyrinth. That's all from people that I've spoken to. It is a nightmare. Um,
oh, it is. It's an absolute maze to try and navigate. Yeah, um, yeah. So I think see what your employer has available. The other thing I'm thinking about salary sacrifice is you are willingly giving up part of your salary. So, I mean, for example, if your company has a death in service benefit, and you've given up 5, 6, 10,000 pounds of your salary, the multiple of that will be come from the lower figure. So that's something to bear in mind as well. And sorry, Ax, I cut you off earlier. What were you going to say?
No, I think it's a really good point. I was going to say as well, in similar vein, if you are bonused, your a company might have a bonus scheme that also might be on a post salary sacrificed amount, but they will often tell you that.
Yeah, and I think it's
So
ask your employer directly, ask your HR
yeah,
team, ask other people who work in the same team or department as you. Like, what do you do to kind of optimize your money? They might say, "I've no idea. Talk to me about it." Who knows? In which case, you can point them towards us or this episode, or they can send us an email if they want us to give you some high level kind of suggestions over things, but of course, not advice particularly. Um, yeah,
yeah,
the only other thing I would say is just to get your thoughts on is like I have an outstanding student loan. So if I were to go for kind of from this salary to that salary, would you suggest making obviously the amount that's mandated that I pay will increase? Do you think it's a good idea to make additional payments to that or just leave it be?
it's yeah, $1 million question. I think I always took the approach with my student loan of it will get paid off when it gets paid off. There's a benefit that it gets written off after a certain amount of years anyway, if it's not being paid. I always prioritize other things um, as well as my student loan. I think you hear quite a lot of it in like the FI community that's very US based about student loans, but I think student loans is akin to like having a mortgage over there. Um, so I think with our student loans, it's a little bit more like an additional tax, or like graduate tax is probably a better way of looking at it. There are calculators online. I think it's always like, what's the options with your money? Like, you can either pay off your student loan early, um, or you can invest that money, or pay off a mortgage, or you can pay off debt. I always prefer to have the cash and liquid in my investment accounts, and because I knew over time my student loan would gradually get paid off. So I'm without knowing the ins and outs, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Um, but there are calculators that you can use, but I always prefer to have the cash invested.
Yeah, because it's accessible, isn't it? You can do
Yeah,
something with it. I think that I'd put it probably in this order of consider pension contributions extra to
yeah,
bring you below the threshold because you get 40% tax relief without paying 40% tax. Then think about if you owe any money, any debts, any personal loans or anything like that, get rid of those with your new salary so you can keep more of that. And if you do have any debts, like I would strongly, strongly consider continue living how you've lived
yeah,
for the X number of years before getting the pay rise. And say, for example, you get an extra £400 a month, say, or 200 or six or whatever. Use that money and pay off the highest interest credit card or loan that you have. And once you've cleared one of them, add that portion of money, the £400, plus what you were paying towards a credit card or a loan, and then pay off whatever is next. And very quickly, you can start to make some huge inroads into clearing those. Not only will you have more available income now, which is a good problem to have. If you have extra income, you can decide what you're doing with it. But it also gives you like this mental freedom of actually that's gone, it's finished now, and I don't have to do anything with it. I can kind of lay it to rest and just concentrate on you, on life. I also think there's an argument here for perhaps a little lifestyle upgrade because you'll be working hard. You don't get paid this extra money for doing nothing. Well, I think it's unlikely. So do something as well to make your life a little bit easier as well. I mean, Alex, would you agree? So long as it's not 100% of your increase in salary that you're spending on like I don't know, takeaway food or something.
yeah. I think there's room for it. I think if you were to speak to the strict FI people, they would be absolutely outlawing that. But I think,
Yeah, no way.
yeah. But I think
Sacrilege.
I think, you got to be real. The it's I think important to um celebrate where you get to, and I think there's no harm in, yeah, increase. Say if you were to pick numbers out of the air, you get an extra £400 a month. You put an extra, you use £300 of that to go towards investing and free up £100 for maybe you shop at a nicer place or you go out to a restaurant every other week or like use that for you. I think that's I think as long as it's an intentional thing, that for me is the important bit. Where I see, because I've got friends who are, you go up the earnings ladder and it's like just houses get bigger, cars get bigger, clothes get more expensive, and the net at the end of the month is the same. It's just that the values are bigger and that go in and go out. And
Yeah, the numbers change. The liabilities get longer and more punchy,
yeah,
when actually you could be making that money work for you.
that's it. And I've probably I think I'm fairly good at keeping on top of my spending. I certainly get the urge to go and splurge every now and again, but I try my best to be very mindful of things. But where I'm good at is not having like little bits all the time creeping in to become habits. Um, and I always question
Yeah,
my decisions. I find it so hard to spend money on big things, but I often find that when I do, it really helps me. And I
yeah.
can,
I think
yeah,
I find I'm pretty much the opposite to you. So I will have no problem. Say, for example, my wife and I are going to change our shed because our current shed's 40 years old or something. It's falling down. It's got holes all over it. I've got no problem spending. I think our shed's going to come in at it's 2,700 or something. I don't know, with a base and being built and some guys to come and build it. I've got no problem spending that, but buying myself a I don't know, 60, 70, £80 pair of trousers for work. I just couldn't justify it. But
mm,
shed, no problem. Trousers,
yeah, yeah, it's
I don't know what's
interesting.
going on with my psychology.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, and I don't know if I think everyone's probably unique in their ways of doing it. Um, but yeah, I think there's no harm in having a bit of lifestyle inflation. I think it's where it completely goes out of control, and that I always think of it as like how much profit do I make every month from my job, and that's like so it's like my income versus and take away all my expenses that are necessary. I try and keep that at a decent, basically the same, and growing, I should say. So I try and keep my expenses within a few £100s of each other every month. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I like the idea of you have your income minus your expenses, and what you have left is profit, like for you, for your hard work, etc.
yeah,
That's a really good way of looking at it. And actually, if someone were to say to you, "Well, you're going to make 400 extra pounds profit this month," like you'd take it, wouldn't you?
yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
don't fritter the money away.
Yeah. Um, I was just going to mention just around
Mm.
mentioned at the start, just around the if you are probably if you're further into the 40% bracket and you can't salary sacrifice your way down, then I think some of the savings accounts, especially given the interest rates now, you probably don't need as much as you think in savings accounts in order to start having to pay tax on them. And we just did some back of the envelope calculations before we started recording. And say if the average interest rate is 4% now on a bank account, so that means you need about £12,500 across your bank accounts. That would mean you can earn £500 a year in interest. Anything over then that amount, you'll then start paying interest on. And one of our proponents is always, with regards to the emergency funds and having kind of between 3 and 6 months worth of expenses saved up. Now, if you're spending £2,000 a month, and you've got a 6 month emergency fund, you're essentially there at that kind of rate. And so if that is um, something that you're in or you feel you're going to be hitting soon, the there's some alternatives if you still want to keep cash on hand. So like premium bonds, this is one of the areas where this then can start to become useful. Is if you save money into premium bonds, the headline rate is lower than what you might see on a kind of traditional bank account. But because any earnings or prize winnings you get from premium bonds are tax free, the post tax interest rate will actually be better. So, for example, if your current interest rate is like 4% on a bank account, and you've got that £12,500 saved up. Anything over and above that, so every additional pound, rather than earning 4%, you'll be earning 2.4%. And I think the premium bonds at the minute is about 3.4%. So that's a way of, if you still want to hold cash, kind of put it in there. Or you can put it in your investment account, or you can put it into your pension, or you can put it into ISAs, or pay off your any debts, or pay off your mortgage. But it's just, I think sometimes it seems like because for so many years interest rates have been so low, you'd almost needed to have had um, like I don't know how much.
You could have had monstrous amounts, couldn't you, and not paid any.
Yeah, so at 1% interest rate, you're looking at about £50,000 saved up. And if you're kind of our age, from kind of when you started working, interest rates were that kind of level. Well, maximum, you'd be lucky to get 1% on your money, actually. When I left,
Yeah, I remember having a savings account that paid zero point
yeah,
0.5.
yeah, exactly. So I think what's starting to becoming more realistic for more and more people to have to pay tax on their savings. So it's just a bit of a watch out if you are in that area that you probably don't need as much as you think you do. Um,
No, I mean 12.5k is not. When we talk about emergency funds for a
yeah,
family, for a couple or something, if you're spending say 2 grand a month or so, which is not, it's not a huge amount to be honest with
no,
you. It's 6 months savings. It could be three
yeah,
months if you're spending a bit more than that. So it's just something to think about. It's why I think a lot of people look into tax efficiencies of savings. Why
yeah,
premium bonds are used quite a lot, and there's billions of pounds kind of sitting there. Um, yeah, and I think it's just a little kind of wrinkle that you could fall foul of without knowing about it in advance and actually knowing what to do with it. It's not something I think you need to pay for advice for to learn something like that. It's freely available online, but it's understanding what that means for you because it could impact to the tune of a few £100 a year, for example, or more. And you've earned that money. You want to keep as much of it as possible.
yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. And it's the headache of having to fill out a self-assessment tax return then as well.
Yeah,
Um,
but again,
is the other element.
doing
But
those things can save you a lot. I mean, I've one other question before we move to kind of reasonable, ridiculous, and then close. But I'm just thinking about the uh, kind of the 40% tax relief for pensions. Is it correct that you get the 20% relief automatically, but you have to claim the other 20?
no, so that's the case if you have a self-invested personal pension. So if you have a SIP and you do it yourself, you,
Okay,
you have to yeah, exactly. You'll put money into your Vanguard account or Aviva account or whatever. They will automatically put you they round it up so as effectively you'll get £125 in there, I think is what you get. And then you've then got to when you do your annual tax return, so you submit a tax return, and within that there's a section on um, pension contributions, and then you type in how much you've contributed to your kind of personal pension, and you will get a refund from the government for that amount. If you are just doing it through your employer, you don't have to worry. It's kind of inherently you get the relief kind of already in the within your pension because you
it's kind of rolled in, and they deal with it for you.
correct because they take that off and put it into your pension before you then get taxed. So essentially your taxable income reduces, so you save on the 40%
Salary sacrifice. Yeah.
on the salary
Different
sacrifice.
wording.
Yeah.
So is it true then if you're self-employed and you pay 40%, you're kind of in that bracket, you should be doing this form and claiming an extra 20% back?
It depends. So if you are a depends, I guess, on the type of self-employment. If you own a limited company and
Mm-hmm.
you've got that has got its own scheme, and then you put in, and depending on how much you pay yourself, your company will have a scheme like anyone else. If you're like a self-employed trader, like if you're a plumber or somebody that isn't a limited company, then you can do your self-invested like in your SIP, and you'll have to do that where you'll get the immediate relief, but then submit a tax return to get more. But if you have a limited company and you're a director, because you'll usually pay yourself a salary plus dividends, and then they're two separate people. So if you as an individual, the amount you've paid yourself through your limited company, you then go and pay, you give yourself the salary and your dividends. You then go and put that into a pension in a SIP. If you're a higher rate taxpayer, you'll have to do the double, you'll have to do your tax return to get the pension relief. Yeah.
Okay. That's a long answer to what I thought was a simple question. So actually,
Nothing is ever. It
yeah,
depends is probably the most because it's so complex.
it
And
is. And navigating it is hard, isn't it?
it
It's
is.
really difficult
Yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely. So yeah,
Okay. Should we leave optimizing finances or salary there for today? Maybe come back next week and just close some loops, etc. If you're happy with that, was there anything else you want to mention?
yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's if there's any questions from listeners, this is it becomes quite a tricky area when you're in that kind of going into the next bracket. So yeah, any questions, please let us know.
Yeah, I think it's useful for sure. It's more your bag, right, than mine. But yeah, okay.
Reasonable or ridiculous?
So I heard you had a reasonable or ridiculous for this week, so I'll pass to you for that, and then if it's all right, I'll do the summary because you've talked quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my reasonable or ridiculous this week is all to do with woolly hats. So I I rarely spend my money on clothing. When I do, I like to buy something that's quality that's going to last me for a long time. And bit of a backstory, a year ago, I was in Berlin with some friends, and it was I had my coat, my hat, and my like scarf and my pair of gloves stolen from a bar, which still pains me to this day. And I loved those things so much, and I was really annoyed that well, I was annoyed to the person that nicked it. And last year I bought a bit of a temporary because it was beginning of December. I needed something, so I bought like a basic hat from down the road, like a not even a wool hat. But I thought I'm going to treat myself, and I've bought a woolly hat. So it's merino wool, but made in Norway, and it's 70 quid, from a company that's been making hats for decades and decades. Now, it's a lot of money on the face of it. I have randomly just been given a student loan rebate. So I'd overpaid my student loan like 2 years ago, and I got given a decent amount of money returned to me, which was a real surprise. So I'm kind of justifying it with kind of within the context of that. But I expect this hat to last me at least 5, if not 10 years. It is going to keep me warm, and I think it looks quite good. Very traditional Norwegian thing. I'm trying to justify it to myself still, if you can tell.
No, I think it's fine. I don't think you have to justify it to yourself. You're not choosing between wearing this hat and like eating for the weekend or something. Um, and if it's made like if I'm a big proponent on buying something quality and having it last a long
Yes.
time.
Is it? Yes.
And like if it's £70, yeah, it's quite a lot for a hat. Depending on who you ask, some people will say it's not. Other people, majority probably will say it is. But if you keep it 5 years, right, it costs you. I mean, what is that? £14
Yeah.
a year if you
Yeah.
keep it 5 years. So it's like, and then divide that by actually, you're probably not going to wear it all through summer because you'll literally bake. So say you wear it for like 3 months in winter or so, it's cost you £4.60 per month.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
True.
divide that up further by days. It's pence, right,
Yeah.
per wear. And if it's comfortable and it keeps your head warm, you lose a lot of your heat for your body through your head in winter. There's some science there about heat loss and kind of temperature regulation, etc., and some baroreceptors. But I think if you're happy with it and it doesn't get nicked and you don't lose it or leave it on a train or whatever, um, then I think it's reasonable. It's I think better to buy one hat for £70
Hmm.
than 10 hats for £12.
Yes.
over that course of 5 years if you lose them or they fall apart or they're just not comfortable, etc. So from my point of view, I'd say that's entirely reasonable.
Perfect. That was my thinking as I was agonizing it. I was just looking at these hats for about a month. So I'm glad I bit the bullet and got it. So it's currently in the ether going to get delivered. It's currently in a delivery station somewhere. So I'll let you
the
know.
shipping box on its way to you.
That's it, somewhere around there. But yes, no, thank you.
Yeah, close the leaflet when you get it. See how warm it is through November, December, October. But if it stands the test of Norway weather, I think the UK you'll be fine.
That's it.
Okay, let me do a quick summary. So this is episode 77. It's optimizing your salary, probably part one of at least two, maybe some more. The return on heartbeats was from accountant Alex. Been to see Oasis in concert. Really enjoyed it. Well worth the money. Great memories. Get great memory dividends from that. We've talked about optimizing your salary, moving from tax brackets from 20% to 40%. The stuff that you need to be aware of, some of the stuff you need to be aware of if you start paying interest on savings, if you have more than a kind of an emergency fund or so stored in an account, if you earn more than £500 in interest, you'll start paying tax. Be aware of it. What you can do, there's some other stuff around dividends that I don't remember all the numbers for, but if you take dividends, you should know the amount of tax on dividends is going to go up if you're in the 40% bracket. What you can do to reduce and just keep more of the money that you've earned is through salary sacrifice scheme for your work. You can put more money into your pension. So your on paper earnings is £49,999 if you want to be really accurate about it, which means you'll get 40% tax relief on the money into your pension, but you'll only pay 20% tax on your earnings. We've talked about the other things you might lose. There might be an issue with kind of payments from the government for your children, which neither Alex or I have any of. So our knowledge on that is woolly. We'll do some research in the week and close the loop next week. And we've also talked that we both think a Norwegian woolly hat for winter is a reasonable purchase. Do you think I've missed anything?
No, I think that was a very good summary. Just that the tax rate is just on the dividend. So if your basic rate, you pay 8.75%. If you then go into the higher rate, you pay 33.75. So it's quite the jump.
So 25% difference?
Yeah. In absolute,
math.
yeah. It's a chunk. So if you've got a big dividend portfolio that's sat outside of an ISA, then this is where you start to get hit.
Yeah. Thanks for earning extra money, but give us more of it. Thank you, government.
Death and taxes, isn't it? That's the two certainties in life.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think that's good for episode 77. If you've got any questions or you've got any strategies you personally use to optimize your salary, if you're now in the 40% bracket or you're way beyond that and you want to talk to us about it, you can email us at nursingyourwaytowealth@gmail.com. Thank you, Alex, for your time. Welcome back to the UK and the weather and the poorly dressed people that aren't in Milan. And I'll speak to you next week, right?
Yeah, speak to you next week. Nice to chat.
Yeah, as always.
None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.